Hi, this is Sean Meehan,
This is Braden Williams,
and you're listening to
the Psychology
of Lickage.
Well, we're back.
We are back. We're actually
long time no chat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're turning. I can't believe we're actually turning our long drives to gigs conversations into podcasts. This is so cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. I can't believe you guys actually like this stuff. It's
yeah,
awesome.
I know. People are reacting, and I can't believe how many people we're starting to get backlogged with guests now. Jeez, we're gonna have to turn this into a full-time job. But I'm really excited about these next two episodes. There's this one today, episode 4, obviously. Morris James O'Connor played with Stevie Wonder, the Gap Band, and now he's with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Gladys Knight too. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when he brought that up. Anyways, we don't want to blow it. We don't want to blow it for the people, but I'm excited about this one today, and also a good friend of his who currently does play for Stevie Wonder. Has been with Stevie Wonder for a while. He's a keyboard player. From time to time, we will have non-guitar players, we'll call them, but
the others.
We got to get the others. We got to get the perspective of the others as well. Which actually, Roman, we're gonna have Roman Johnson on, keyboard player for Stevie Wonder. He's gonna be on next week. I'm excited about that as well. But let's go to Morris. Let's go to that conversation. I think you guys will be really intrigued. It's a great chat. So enjoy.
All right, here we go.
I guess the first question I have is, tell us about yourself. Like, when did you start playing? Tell us, sort of go back to your childhood and go from there.
I started off playing drums because my brother had a drum set, and when he got rid of his drum set, I stopped doing that. I think I was like eight years old, many years ago.
yeah.
And first thing I was listening to, Jimi Hendrix, of course.
Oh yeah.
So that was early '70s. I'm telling my age now. When I started playing guitar, and it's just so many. When somebody always asks me who's my favorite guitar player, it's like that's really hard to say because there's so many different voices.
Oh yeah.
It's like I can listen to Alan Holdsworth or Van Halen, then I'll listen to George Benson or Weston Montgomery, Charlie Christian, Pat Metheny, Pat Martino. It's just so many, and it's completely different, but they're all amazing guitar players.
Yeah.
Then I was lucky enough to go to MI like in the early 80s.
Oh, cool.
And when I was a student there, Frank and Bali, we graduated together. So I was in school with Frank and Bali.
He's a killer player. He's an insane player, that guy.
And Scott Henderson. I'm like, Jesus Christ, these guitar players are so amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Did I think of computer science? Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Holy shit! Yeah, those guys were amazing. But everybody had their own thing. Everybody, we had a lot of fun. I learned a lot from the students that were there. And the teachers. It was a real cool, relaxed atmosphere. I learned a lot, and I'm still learning. Guitars, you never stop learning.
Oh, it never ends. Yeah, we did a podcast earlier today with. I would say he's one of the top sort of session guys in Canada, a guy named Russ Klein, and he's played with all the sort of top sort of Canadian artists, and he's been around a long time and done a lot of studio work. And he said the same thing. He never stops, and I do the same too. Just always watching videos, always studying, always. Yeah. It never ends, man. You don't just learn a few chords and then it's over. It's like,
what's really weird.
You learn, Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
What's really weird about, the way I look at it, I can see somebody that can be really kind of a beginner or and they'll play something like, wow, I never thought of that way and create a whole nother concept. It's like, it's so many things you can do with the guitar. It's, guys tapping on the guitar and so many different styles, It's just,
it's one of those, we've talked about this before. It's one of those rare instruments where, it's one of those rare things in life that I don't think you can truly master it. I think a few people in the last 100 years came close, but it's just like, man, you're never going to figure it all out. It's just crazy, right? So I noticed when I saw you play, I was kind of surprised actually because I was expecting, like, I couldn't believe how you were actually a really good shredder too. I was like, holy cow, this guy can shred. Like I was expecting more sort of a funky player, a little old school R&B, whatever. And then you came on stage. I saw you in Vancouver at one of the arenas with Earth, Wind, and Fire, right? And then you had this shredder guitar, Tom Anderson or whatever it was. and it comes out and you just start ripping it up like holy shit, like he's tapping and
exactly. Yeah, I was watching
that
a
was
video.
a pleasant surprise when I saw you.
Yeah, I was watching a video of him and he was doing all that crazy
just got to
stuff.
play all of it. Just play all of this. Just got to play all of the styles. I mean, that's that's what I loved about MI, and I never really listened to country music until when I went to MI. And I just got a whole new respect. This guy, Steve Travato, was one of the teachers there. Man, he make a Strat sound like pedal steel, man. That guy would do some crazy.
I know that's insane, eh? I know.
It's like that's not easy to play. It's like, man, that flat picking because there's no hammer on pull off and that.
Yeah,
that's some really hard shit to play.
Yeah, and you got to pay attention to the chords. Unlike in rock, you usually get one key and you can just go, you know. And with country, and you got to really play over the chords more, and it's crazy, man. It's just
it's still like with jazz too. You got to play. It's so many changes coming up there, you know, and it's just it's so many different so many different things you can do.
Oh, for sure. You know? So after MI, did you like? I was looking at your bio, man. I couldn't believe all the people you played for. Like, did you jump right from MI into like hitting the road, and next thing you know, you're playing with one artist to the next?
I jumped from MI to playing with different bands, local bands in LA.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting married really early, having a kid really early. Actually, for a minute, I was a payroll accountant for Toshiba. We did payroll for 26 different states, Canada and Japan.
Man, I would have never imagined you being a bookkeeper type guy.
I mean, I had to just get married, had a kid on the way, and then after that, they let me go, and it's like, wow, really? Just when they were supposed to hire me, which was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Then I moved to Vegas, and I started playing casinos. I was playing with the Imperials for a while. It's an old doo-wop group, and I traveled with those guys. And then I went to Europe for a while, and so that's when I realized, okay, I can do this for a living. I got this. That's when I started. Then I went back to LA, and that's when stuff really started taking off. When I went back
how
to
did
LA.
you? I just read in your bio that one of your favorite artists is Stevie Wonder, and how did you score a gig like that?
It's really weird. I was out on the road with Jody Watley in the early '90s, and I got home, and she took some time off, and I was like, man, I need to, these bills are still coming, and I got 2 kids, and so my buddy, a friend of mine that I knew from high school, great drummer Robert Shipley, say, hey, man, I'm doing this gig at this club in Roquebrune Cap Martin, which is in the south of France.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I'll go. So I was playing there, and I met so many people there. Stevie Wonder came and sat in with us, and we were playing some of everything. We were playing a lot of Marcus Miller stuff from that Sun Don't Lie album, and a lot of R&B jazz stuff, and Stevie sat in with us on drums.
Yeah.
And that's when I met the musical director Nate Watts, and he said, man, we like what you're doing, man. I think Stevie's going to call you if ever that chair opens up.
Wow.
I'm like, no, he's not going to call me. And 2 years later, I get the call. I think I was out on the road with the Gap Band, and I just got back, and my wife told me, hey, this guy, Nate Watts called you. I'm like, really? And so I'm like, Nate from Steve. He's like, it's 2 years later, but
hey, man, yeah.
So he said, well, you got to come and set in and say if you turn his head, if he like what you're doing, you'll probably get the gig. I'm like, I got to turn Stevie Wonder's head? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's just like a modern day Mozart.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow.
We got there. Every time we were there, we were supposed to be rehearsing. He said, just learn these songs. Don't worry about learning the live Natural Wonder album. And I made sure I learned the live Natural Wonder album anyway. He told me not to, and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And so, because we never rehearsed. It's like every time the other guitar player at the time was this guy, Rick Zinniger, who was played like Wes Montgomery, George Benson, Pat Martino, Pat Metheny, and Schofield all rolled up in one cat. This guy.
Wow.
I'm like, this guy was ridiculous. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I was like, I'd love to be on this gig just to pick this guy's brain. So I'm sitting around, so we were sitting there just playing jazz standards. It's just like, are we going to play any Stevie Wonder music? Stevie came in there, and I played Days of Wine and Roses, a jazz standard. And then I played Tuesday Heartbreak. And then he said, oh, yeah, Stevie likes you. And he walked away, and Nate said, man, Stevie likes you, but I don't know if it's enough time for you to learn the live show. I said, I know it. and it was a tricky ending on what song was that? Higher Ground.
Yeah.
And he said, you know that, and I knew the tricky ending, and I was like, he said, oh, okay, well, you got the gig.
Nice.
And that's how that happened. It was,
and you end up doing that for like 15 years or something, right? Like
yeah.
Wow.
Off and on. I stopped for a minute in 2002. I think Stevie kind of took a hiatus. He was working on the Time to Love album. We started working on that album. I think maybe in 2000 or maybe in 99. That didn't come out until 05. But so I went to Vegas. My buddy called me and said, hey, man, you want to do this Vegas hit with Gladys Knight? Yeah. So I ended up doing that gig. And I think the last year I was with Gladys, I was a musical director. And I was like, then Nate said, man, we're going to do the Time to Love tour. You know, everybody thinks you're under contract. I said, no, I'll give Gladys I give her a notice. I'll let her know.
Yeah.
So I hired another guitar player, a great guitar player, you know, so I hired him and I gave her the 2-week notice and made sure he knew everything. And me and Gladys are still cool to this day. And,
wow, that's so.
went back
I can't even believe you played for her too. Like what? Like I was blown away by like I know you through Clyde, right, and through checking out Earth, Wind, and Fire, and then I thought, oh yeah, you probably just sort of grew up with Clyde, whatever, and then had this gig. And then when I looked into you, I was like, holy shit, I didn't know he played with Stevie Wonder and Gladys Knight, and like, wow, that just must have been like, was that a dream come true for you? Sort of playing with these people.
Oh yeah, playing with Stevie was just like, it's like I'm up on stage with a modern day Mozart. You know what's funny? It's like, so now if anybody's gonna be an asshole, he can be, but he wasn't. He's the nicest cat you ever want to play with. It was like what he used reverse psychology. It's like if it's something that he wants you to get, he's gonna encourage you, like you can do it. And it's such a relaxed atmosphere, so it makes you play even more. He just brings it out of you, which is so cool. And these guys, Earth, Wind, and Fire, are pretty cool too. It's really, I feel really blessed playing with both of these, being able to play with both of these artists.
Yeah, no kidding. So how do you? When I mentioned earlier, obviously I met you through my friend and manager Clyde Hill. How do you guys?
Clyde, I love that cat. He's always been a practical joker, even in high school.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's really strange. Braden, you got to check this out. There's a group of guys, and they all went to the same high school, and literally all of them went off to play with like huge cats. Like, what is it? Something crazy in the water in that area? Like, what is it about?
Clyde played in the orchestra at CBS with Daryl Jones.
I know.
Like, wow.
Like that's what I mean. I remember we did this gig. I don't know if you were at that gig. We did a gig a few years ago at the Nom, and Roman Johnson was there and a few other guys all standing in front. His buddy Tony, all these heavy players. Man, I could not look at the front row. I couldn't. Like, I had to keep looking above because if I thought about who was standing in front of us, I think I would have lost it. Right? It was like pretty nerve-wracking. But
man, I wish I would have got a chance to see you guys. I was running around. Man, I wish I would.
No, it's all good, man. There's going to be more chances too. We're still going strong, and we've had a few membership changes along the way, but it's not the nature of the beast anyway. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely understand.
Wow.
That.
Yeah, no, it's just trippy how all this small group of guys that went to school together and all kind of, you never hear about that. It's usually one guy goes off and does it, but literally all of you went off and sort of went and played with a lot of heavy players, which is really, really cool. So Braden, you got any questions? I've been asking all the questions here tonight so far. So
yeah, I mean, like I just want to know like what's it like working with Earth, Wind, and Fire now compared to working with Stevie Wonder? Like how is that? How is it different? What are the similarities?
I'm trying to think. It's like with Earth, Wind, and Fire, we'll have a set show. And you see, Philip is a tourist just like Stevie. So sometimes he may want to go off on some gigs and it's like, oh, we playing this? So he'll throw some. But he doesn't do it that much. But with Stevie, sometimes you don't know what he's going to play. And the thing with Stevie, though, if you don't know it, he's going to play it on the keyboard and you're going to catch him. To me, it was one of the best ear training gigs, is because he'll play something and you got to follow him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like I learned for once in my life, I learned that song on stage. We weren't supposed to play it. We were playing at the Constitution Hall at the time President Clinton.
Wow.
And I guess that was President Clinton, one of his. And I'm like on stage. I'm like, really? After he went around a couple of times, I got it after that. And then after that, I went home. So it's another song I got to learn. So it's just always learning. If I get called for a Stevie Wonder gig, I'm up for 2 or 3 days just going over stuff because I don't know, what he may do.
Yeah.
You got to be kind of ready for that, you know. And it's kind of the same with Earth, Wind, and Fire because they both have a long history. So, you know, it's just, you know, to grow up listening to those two artists, it's just, man.
You must always feel like kind of the kid in the band. You know what I mean? Like these bands with so much history. Yeah. Braden's the kid in the band. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be the youngest guy on the gig, but not anymore.
Man, you still look young. It's all good.
I'm the old guy now. Although Clyde is older than me.
Oh, there we go. We're gonna bug him. In fact, he's been texting me. Well, I don't think he realizes we have this chat right now because he's been texting me nonstop here while we're talking away.
Yeah, but yeah, I have to come out to Vancouver and see you guys, man. I love that town. Vancouver is such a beautiful town.
Oh yeah. I guess you didn't have much of a visit last time. Weren't you guys supposed to be here soon and they got canceled or something? Like, I think you had, or did it just happen? Did you guys do it and then?
No, we got a tour coming up with Santana, and I'm praying
that's
this coronavirus thing is gone by then. But I don't know. It's getting pretty scary, you know.
Yeah.
Getting pretty scary now.
Yeah, no kidding. It's going to be like, who knows when everybo's playing again. That's why we decided to do this podcast. We thought, what a great time to
keep everyone entertained too.
Track down guys like you. You know.
No, I appreciate it. Gives me something to do.
Likewise. So let's go back to, because this is called. We're trying to do a different twist in this podcast where, like I said, it's called the Psychology of Lickage. So we try to look at guitar playing from a psychological point of view. You know, what does it makes you tick? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? All this sort of stuff. Yeah. Now let's go back to this. Was it a vocational school in high school where did you go to school at the same time as Daryl and Clyde and a few other guys? Like, did you
well, you know, I went to a different high school than they were at. I worked up there over the summer. One year, I think they had this program in the 70s called a CETA program, and kids could go to school and work. They can go to schools. Some kids were just cleaning up trash, or would you like working on cars? Yeah. But you got a check for doing that. That's like, which was really cool. With Jimmy Carter had that program. Yeah. I'm telling my age now. This is in the 70s. So one year I worked with the All City Jazz Band, which was the band, which was Tony Boyd and all those guys were in the band.
Yeah.
And then the next year I worked with the orchestra, and that's much, but he didn't go there in the summer. He didn't work. That guy was working, and he was in high school. He was just one of the cats. He was that guy.
Yeah.
Play all that Jocko stuff. Yeah. You know, so all that Jocko. Me and my buddy of mine, we used to go over his house and we'd listen to some Jocko stuff. This was years ago.
Yeah.
And he always was very mature. He was just, you know, mature plays like that.
Killer player.
Yeah, he's got ridiculous chops. You don't really hear that on the Stones, but he can play.
Oh yeah. We're hoping to get him on too. We're hoping to. We're trying to get all you guys on here at some point. You know, I call it the Chicago music mafia. You know what's interesting is, you know, I wonder, because Clyde tells me how rough it was out. Like, it's kind of, he had a bit of it. Like, it's, you know, he still is a rough place. It's one of the, you know, highest really murder capitas and all kinds of crime and gangland and all that stuff. Do you guys think that program and getting into music kind of kept you guys all out of?
Yeah, because I hate to say this, I hate to put this on any president, but in 1980, I mean, I was graduating then from high school.
Yeah.
That all of that stuff stopped, you know, and that's when I saw the gang stuff. And I was leaving. I was going to LA to go to MI then.
Yeah.
And but that's when I you know, started hearing about all the crazy. I'm like, what is? Because it wasn't really like that, you know. I guess lucky the guys I grew up with, we, you know, when guys was, I guess some guys had different goals. I mean, I was like, I wanted to be a session player. I was like, oh man, I was looking on the record, seeing Tommy Tedesco, Larry Carlton, Robin Ford.
Yeah.
And man, one what's the guy? Carlos Rios, man, on the Brother to Brother album. This stuff, his work on that album is still legendary to me. You know, just all of the, and Philip Church, you know, I got a chance to do an album with him actually, which we played the same guitars. Actually, he was the producer, and I was so honored that he called me to play guitar with him on this album that he produced.
That's
his
so
bass
cool.
player. Which was really, it was kind of playing like that Memphis kind of blues stuff. It was so much fun. So much fun. Is that guy, amazing player too. You got to hear him play some chord melody stuff. He studies a lot of classical stuff, and he mixed that in. It's like his chord melody stuff is ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like. Did you ever? I don't know if people outside of Canada really knew this guy, but did you ever hear of a guy named Lenny Bro? Did you guys ever?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah, he did the chord harmonic thing. That guy.
Oh yeah.
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 That guy's insane. Like we were just in fact in the last podcast we were talking about him and it, if Braden and I have talked about this before. If anyone has ever come close to mastering guitar, it would be Lenny Bro for sure.
Yeah.
He's a huge influence on every Canadian guitar player.
When he did the harmonics, on the guitar, that shit was so crazy, man.
Oh man, with the right hand, he's got one finger out, and I know.
I see
I'm
Pat
still trying to figure that one out.
Pat Metheny does that sometimes.
Yeah.
I see him. I could say, what? Somebody, I think I heard he was murdered or something, or he died.
Lenny, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, there's always they've never really solved it, but I think he was living in LA or something, and they found him upside down in a pool, or it's probably a crazy ex-wife or something.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, it's just when you started talking about mixing classical and jazz and all that, I just thought of Lenny. I said, I bet you Morris has probably went through a Lenny phase. Everybody goes through a Lenny phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
He's ridiculous. Yeah, Lenny Bro is amazing.
So was your goal, like when you were in high school and you're playing in these bands and you're trying to, whatever, and you want to leave Chicago, was your goal always to be a studio player, even way back when you were a kid, like even when a teenager?
Kind of. I was I played with a band, actually. My buddy who I hired to play with Gladys when I left, we grew up in high school together. He actually went to CBS, guitar player James Davis. He lives here in Vegas now. He's guitarist for Gladys Knight.
Yeah.
We were always playing in bands together, and we would always push each other. We were always reading these articles on these session musicians and Guitar Player magazine, and just being all excited about that all through high school. And it was that I think that was, we played with this band. We opened up for a lot of people, and we were the house band at this club called a High Chaparral, which was a pretty legendary club in Chicago. And James Brown came there a couple of times, and we opened up for him. Then one year,
wow,
he was supposed to just do a few songs for this blues promoter named Purvis Spann, and we were supposed to just play 3 songs behind him. That's what James Brown thought, but Purvis Spann had us learn James Brown whole show, and so we played James Brown whole show. And James like, well, you gonna give me some more money, I'll play the show. And he wanted to take. He said, "Give me this. I'll have this band for a couple of weeks. Then run my band off the stage." It's like he wanted to hire the band. I was like 17 or 18, and they were like, "No." Nobody was like, "No." I was like, "I'll go." And they were like, "Shut up," because I was the youngest guy there. Because he's real hard. He's real hard on the band. He's real hard on bands, but
Oh, I heard he fined players and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like
they
didn't so mad.
Yeah, they were older cats. I didn't know any better. I was just all excited. It was James Brown. I'm like,
That's wild. Yeah, I always wanted to go to MI. I was trying to save my money, and it was really expensive to go from Canada at the time. And so I ended up going to Humber College. But yeah, that was one of those dreams that never came to fruition for me. It's like a 1 or 2 year program, right? Like 2 years or something?
Yep. A couple of year program. And you know what? When I went there, it was so inexpensive. Now, I was going to teach there maybe almost 20 years ago, and I found out how much it was cost. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I could never went to Fort to go to that school.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, this was like in the 90s, and I couldn't talk my parents into it, and I was trying to save money, and then finally I heard of a good jazz program in Toronto, so I just went there for a few years, and that was pretty good. But MI was just so prestigious, I was like, oh yeah, I want to go, because they're like famous guitar players hang out there and teach there and all that kind of stuff, right? So
yeah, I dug that vibe. A lot of I met Joe Pass there. I got a chance to sit in on a 1-on-1 with Robin Ford, which was really cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's too cool. That is too cool. Yeah, when I was gonna, it was kind of just before he passed away. Barney Kessel had showed up, and he came and played, and we got to chat with him, and that was a trip. That was like he's old school jazz guy, right? And played with Billie Holiday and stuff, and so that was kind of neat too. And so now, okay, so I guess you're learning to play in the 80s. So you kind of grew up learning to play in the 70s, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Did you go? We're always going to bring this up because to me everything comes down to Eddie Van Halen. He's my favorite player. Did you go through an Eddie Van Halen phase? Did you like how old were you? What were you doing at the time? Were you gigging already at that point, or?
Yeah, you know what? When I in the 70s, I was still in Chicago. So
yeah,
it was this guy named, I think, Steve Lynch that taught at MI. That was
yeah.
the first person I heard. That was the first person I heard tap before Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't hip to him until I'm like, oh, he's doing what? Because this guy Steve, he came and taught up at the school, so a lot of my stuff is from what he did. Then I heard Van Halen. I'm like, wow, Eddie Van. Yeah, I kind of went through a little phase of listening to him, and but at that time I got the Alan Holdsworth stuff, man.
Of course, and of course Eddie was an Alan
point.
Holdsworth too. So yeah,
that guy is and Frank Mbali,
just insane.
Frank Mbali was another guy who I was like, man, this guy's a fucking student, really.
I know. Like Braden, I don't know how familiar you are with Frank Mbali, but he's I would say he's the sweep master. The arpeggio sweep master.
We're best buddies, man. We're best buddies. That's who I was hanging out with at the NAMM show, and we were talking about Starving back in the day when we were we would do a lot of playing together, and we were doing like a band thing. It wasn't really we didn't do any gigs. We never got a gig. We were just he ended up getting busy, and we were trying to get him to play with us in this band we were doing, and he's always from day one the same guy. We, as a matter of fact, at the NAMM show, I got there late and I called him. We went and had dinner, and after that he met me at my hotel. We hung out on my balcony, had a cigar and a glass of wine, and talked about school.
Nice.
This is really cool.
That's cool, man. That's so
he's such a nice guy.
It's amazing about who the people you've been exposed to and learned from, and it's pretty cool. It's an honor to have you on the show, man. It's very, very cool.
Oh, thank you.
It's super. I mean, I could go all night, just asking questions. But I do before we lose you though. I want to get into your rig and stuff. Like, do you have? Do you just give us your rig rundown. Do you have a lot of different rigs, or do you just kind of use the same one since this college days, or what?
No, I've been through so many different. I went through I was using the PV stuff for years. Then I switched to Mesa Boogie. I was using the Lone Star.
Yeah.
Then I went from the Lone Star to the Egnator Tourmaster, and actually Frank Mbali connected me with DV Mark. That's what I'm using now.
Oh, cool.
It's a DV Mark. DV Mark amp. I have the which one am I using? The EVO1. But now I've been using lately I've been using the 666, which is an all tube one, man, and with a 412 cabinet, and man, those things sound so good. Really warm sounding amp.
Do you have a lot of pedals in front of you, or are you kind of
I'm using a G System by TC Electronics, and I have of course a Vox Wah now. Vox, some of my rigs have a Vox, some of them Crybaby as well in the volume. Mm-hmm. And for distortion, I'm using what is that? God, why can't I think of the name of the distortion pedal? I got to look at what I'm using. I have this thing called the EVO1 by TC Electronics, which is kind of patterned after the Vox AC30. I use that for the bluesier sound for the that's the way to work.
Yeah.
And I have the what's that? Full tone, the full tone pedal. OCD full tone. I'm using OCD.
Yeah, we both use that too. Everyone uses that pedal, eh?
Yeah.
That's a great pedal, man. And what about the guitars? What was that? A couple times I've seen you playing that green guitar. It's like, is it a Tom Anderson or something?
No, it's this guy out of Japan, Mr. Shino.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. He was making he made this guitar for me, like maybe he gave me this guitar, the green guitar, in 1996, and I dug it because it reminds me of a Tom Anderson with the double strap things on the back part of it, and it had I have like Seymour Duncan little 59s.
Oh, nice.
In the bridge, I have a JB. And it's a licensed Floyd with Spurzels, so because I get more sustain to me.
Yeah,
get more sustain when you don't have the locking thing up top. I rather have a Spurzer. You get more sustain out of it. And I've been using this guitar since I think the first tour I did with Stevie Wonder, we played at the Budokan in Japan in '96.
Wow. Oh, cool.
And I did an interview for the guitar magazine there, and he gave me this green guitar then, and I still have it. It's like cool. I keep, because it's arch topped also, so it gets a really nice warm jazz sound. I can get a nice.
Oh, nice. Oh, sweet.
So it can go from that sound.
Wow,
to
that's
like
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I noticed that when I saw you live. It was really versatile. Like, I don't remember you switching guitars.
No, I don't have time because I'm doing choreography and singing and playing. It's like I would love to, because I have like some arch top guitars, and I didn't realize. I was talking to Mr. Shino. He said he was into race car drivers, so his favorite race car driver was Anderson, I guess. And so he said he made this guitar for Horner. It was a Telly, and it's called a HS Anderson.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, that's the guitar that Prince played.
Wow.
That HS Anderson. The HS means Hadasato Shino. And so the same guy who made that Telly that Prince played is the same guy who made the green guitar, and he made all of the D'Angelo. He reissued the D'Angelico New Yorkers, which was really good jazz box.
Wow, is ever cool? Yeah, awesome. I use the same thing. I put a JB in the bridge, and then but instead of a little 59, I use or a 59. I mean, I use a jazz. I really like the sound of the Seymour Duncan jazz. Nice warm. It's very similar to the 59. Very, like
I have that in one of my guitars. I have that's like a humbucker. Is that the humbucker one?
Yeah, it's a humbucker. Yeah, so I go humbucker, single coil hum. I think you go single coil humbucker.
Yeah, I had a signature model that they were working on that was a single hum, but it was too heavy. I wanted them to make, so that's still in the works. I wanted to have it more like a Paul Reed, like a 3 on each side, if it was going to be that thick of a body, so I could get that cross between a Les Paul and a Strat sound. That's what I like about Serge. He's got that Les Paul, and he can split those pickups on there. He gets
yeah, he's a great player too. That's a great comment, Braden. You got to see these two guys play live together. It's a great guitar show, because they don't play the same thing, right? They play off each other, and it's awesome. Super funky, man. Holy, it's like really, really, and the tones are really good. Like that's one thing I noticed too. We've talked about this in other podcasts where I'd rather listen to good tone than if you're a great player but you don't have good tone, I can't listen to it.
Definitely,
and I really enjoyed the tone of you guys' show. I was like, wow, really nice sound, old school vintage sounds and stuff, and it was really cool, man. So I mean, I one thing I want to touch on too, going back to the whole one thing we've talked about in other podcasts and stuff is like, would you say like, I know it did for me. I know, like, I come from a little bit of a troubled childhood and stuff, but I say music saved me. Would you say music saved you? Would you say that it really was that thing that got you throughout your whole life, the one consistent thing?
Yeah, because I grew up in my brothers had a singing group years ago called the O'Connor Brothers, which is and so that was always from longest I can remember as a kid. And seeing my brother play drums, and then seeing my brother sing, and then they got picked up they went to LA from Chicago to be produced by Ike and Tina Turner. And
wow.
Which was funny, because this record, I used to sing with them. I was like 8 or 9. My mom wasn't going to let me go to LA.
Yeah.
I remember this song years ago that they had called Don't Stay Away, and it was this rock guitar solo at the end. I'm like, man, who is that? Jimi Hendrix? I was like 9 years old, and they said, no, it's this guy from Chicago named Terry Kaft. I'm like, I didn't realize Terry Kaft played on my brother's record in the early 70s.
Wow,
the original guitar player from Chicago. I was like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, wow, Terry Kaft. I was trying to find that recording, trying to find a decent recording, so next time we do a tour with Chicago, let those guys hear it so they can get a laugh out of it.
Yeah. Hey, were your parents musicians as well, like, or was it kind of a generational thing, or just you that generation of you and your brothers kind of thing?
Just me and my brothers. Yeah, my dad said he sung a little bit, but he didn't take it serious. But
Were they
All of my
encouraging? Was
brothers.
your dad pretty encouraging?
Yeah, he was. Yes, he
Yeah.
was. Yep. Yes, he was.
That
Yep.
I think that's important too. Like both Braden and I's first guitar teachers was our dads. Like my stepdad was a guitar player.
Oh, that's great.
His dad was a guitar player. Yeah. See, there seems to be this common thread that a lot of pro musicians either had a pro dad or their family, or it seems kind of like the family business. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
did you grow up in it and stuff? So cool, man. Braden, do you have anything else to ask? I think we've got lots of content here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I think we've got lots. I kind of want to touch on kind of how you approach like soloing, because I don't think we really talked about that.
No, we didn't get into that yet. Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool because
it's crazy.
Yeah, because I was listening to your playing and it was like you're doing like so much, like you're all over the neck, and I'm just wondering, like, are you more pattern based? Are you thinking like the cage system? Like what's going through your mind?
Oh, you know what? All of that, actually. It's just I'm trying to live in the moment and not to try and overthink it. You know, that's the hard thing about it. You know, because you have to play different in different situations. Like on Earth, Wind and Fire gig, it's like I have to make that solo on That's the Way of the World. It's the same solo.
Right.
I got to make it feel good, and sometimes it's going to feel different. But people who spend money to see that, they want to hear that solo. Because they can sing that. So I got to put my heart and soul and feeling into playing those same notes, which is challenging, you know, because a lot of people can't do that. But if I'm doing a club gig or a jazz gig, I'm just going for it, you know.
Right.
I'm playing different stuff all the time. But, you know, so it's a difference. You got to do a performance, you got to play, and you got to give a show, because people, you know, they don't want to see you frown, and they want you want to be, because you want to generate that positive energy to the audience. You know, you want to make sure they're getting that as well.
Do you ever get nervous? Like,
is there a solo?
Is there a solo that you get nervous about before you play it? Like one that everyone knows and you freak out a little bit, or?
You know what? Sometimes, and that kind of gives that energy. It's like, you know, you just got to have that attitude. You know, I used to play with this band called Otis Day and the Nights, which was like kind of a rock and roll toga.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that band gave me that edge to, like, all right, go get them. Yeah, you know, give you that. You know, give you that, and you got to have that attitude when you hit the stage. Like, I'm going to get them. Yeah. You know, and that's the kind of attitude. It's like, and this guy, one of the teachers at MI, would tell us, you know, whenever you playing on stage, make sure you playing like you're gonna die the next day.
Exactly.
You know, and that's, you know, no matter where I'm at, if I'm playing in a club that's $50 or $60 gig, or I'm playing at Carnegie Hall or whatever, I'm gonna give it my all. You know, and that's.
Play like it's the last time you're going to play.
Yeah. And that's, you know, if I can't do that, I'll stay at home, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, that's cool, man. Thank you so much for sharing all this stuff. And we'll look forward to hanging out with you again when we're down in LA, or hopefully when you're up here, hopefully when they finally let you guys cross the border.
Yes, definitely.
It'll be awesome. A lot of fun. So yeah, man, we're gonna piece together a show and we'll send it to you, and we'll probably release it in the next few weeks. We're gonna release one every week, and we got a whole bunch of guests like you coming on and stuff. So thank you so much, man. It's been an honor.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Morris. We'll talk again soon.
Keep doing what you guys doing, man.
Thank you, man. And
be safe
with you.
Man.
Thanks for the inspiration. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Right on. Take care, Morris. Cheers.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a chat!
Oh,
what a fascinating guy! I couldn't believe when he talked about going to MIT. I so wanted to go to MIT. Yeah. It was a dream that didn't come to fruition. I ended up going to Humber College, which ended up being a great school too. Yeah. But no disrespect to Humber College, because that was an amazing place. But you know, going to school with Frank Gambale. Hey kids, you got to check Frank Gambale out. He's the ultimate sweep picker, which maybe we'll get him on the show at some point.
That'd be awesome.
I couldn't believe like just this guy's story, you know,
it was so
playing
cool.
with all these famous people.
Yeah, it was cool hearing his story about auditioning for Stevie Wonder.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was
cool. Was fascinating. Yeah. So kids, learn everything. Learn more than what you need to learn. That was the lesson. That's the lesson I got from there. Where you know, you get tested on auditions and stuff. That's a neat thing to talk about. Obviously, I think a lot of our listeners will go to auditions. I've been to auditions.
Yeah.
And you get tested in ways you don't expect. Like Stevie Wonder, kind of knew that everyone would know the hits. So he tested. Let's see how serious of a fan you really are.
Yeah.
So learn the B-sides, learn the whole album, learn all the songs. You know.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even do any Stevie Wonder songs for the first few rehearsals or something, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. He went right into. He just tested his musical ability, you know, and which he talks about in the interview as well. How he never stops practicing, he never stops learning, he never stops researching. I mean, this guy, I would dare to say he's one of the best. He's one of the top guys in the world. You know, he's one of those. He could walk into any gig. He could literally walk into any gig. He could join a death metal band, a polka band, a jazz band, Stevie Wonder's band. I mean, he could. And that's, I think he's the ultimate. You want to aspire to be a player like that. I think if you want to make a living at it anyways.
Exactly.
So, but anyways, how about you? What's your whole take on the whole thing? What did you learn from that chat?
Well, I thought the whole part about, the discussion about which school he was going to and the fact that he went to MIT and he, talked to a bunch of the guys there and he learned from a lot of people there. It's kind of interesting to hear from his perspective because he went through a different era than a lot of other, budding musicians are going through
Absolutely.
now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
that's a really good point.
Yeah, because nowadays it's like you can just go on YouTube, and I'm not like saying that it's better, but you can learn so much off the internet now that it's insane.
Well, I come from pre-internet. I'm going to date myself, but I came, when I was growing up at 12, 13, 14 years old, I wish there was YouTube, and I don't know if I would have needed college. I don't know. I mean, I probably still, what I liked about college was more what happened in the hallways than really what happened. I mean, the classes were educational and all that stuff, but I think I could have, in a YouTube era, I could have easily learned more than enough for all that stuff that I learned. Easily. And so I think I went more for the networking, and I made a lot of friends, and I got to play with so it doesn't mean you don't go to school, but I don't think if your goal is to, I want to learn theory and I want to learn this, I want to learn that, just go on YouTube. You'll get it all. You'll get it all. But if your goal is to network and become a studio player or become a performer and get inside other people's heads and just hang out with them, there's something to be said. You can sit in front of YouTube all you want, but there's something to be said about hanging out with it, like what we do. This podcast. Yeah. I mean, I've learned so much from you just hanging out with you because you come from a different generation. You look at the guitar completely different, and it influences my playing. And I know it's influencing yours, hopefully in a good way. But but it's so yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big. God, I could go on and on about that, but that's a really good point. Yeah. It's do you still go to school? Do you need to go to school? Well, if you don't have the money. And you don't, because it's expensive. I mean, going to MIT, part of the reason why I really wanted to go to MIT, the school he talked about, but part of the reason why I didn't go was my parents didn't have the money. It was so much money to go down. So, I got a little government grant and drove to Toronto and stayed with a friend and went to a Canadian school. But if you don't have the money, it doesn't mean, don't let it stop you from learning. You can learn just as much, enough more on YouTube. YouTube's amazing, man. I wish YouTube was around when I was a teenager, like it was for you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you find that it influenced your playing? Like, do you find that YouTube has a lot to do with the player you are? Did it really affect you?
I think it did actually, and I think it affected me in a different way than probably you think, because like when I was growing up, I didn't like I'm an introvert, right? So I spent a lot of time in my room and just practicing alone, and probably like a lot of other players, but YouTube was kind of that thing that allowed me to do it all on my own, which was it's just a different way of learning, like compared to in the past where you didn't have YouTube, you'd have to kind of talk to people about it. Whereas I didn't really talk to a lot of other guitar players for a long time. A lot of it, like YouTube was my friend basically for the first few years.
It's interesting. Yeah. And that's a really good reflection of your generation, the sort of the smartphone generation or whatever you want to call it. I guess your YouTube was I was similar, very introverted, but I had to get out of the house. I had to get on the bus and I had to find the local players that were about 5 years older than me that were playing the clubs. And I had to, and that experience was cool because I jumped from one teacher to the next and I got to learn so many different things. And I strongly recommend that. And I think that's a little bit lost. It's a little bit lost in sort of the new generation of guitar players is go and hang out and don't necessarily like talk about stuff too. I remember when I was in college and the main guitar professor, may he rest in peace. He passed away a while back, but he was trained by Lenny Breau. He was he was just an incredible guitar player, incredible person. And I remember one time being all arrogant. I think I was 19 or 18 at the time, and I was like, "How's the classes going?" And I was complaining about how these guitar players weren't doing their homework, and I was just being arrogant about it. And he kind of shut me down really fast, and he went, "Sean," he says, "sometimes you can learn a lot more from a bad player than a good player." And I'm kind of coming around here to my point. What he's saying, what I think what he's trying to say is you can learn from everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the more guitar players you hang out with, the more. That's why, then next week when Roman Johnson comes on, he's a keyboard player. Man, I learned so much from that conversation. I would have never thought. I could think it's really important to go beyond sitting on YouTube, but go hang out in a room and I mean, what do you like? I guess maybe it's my fascination with psychology and human behavior, but I want to know, like when I heard you play, you suddenly became a case study for me. I remember from the first time I played, I went, I got to know everything about this guy. I got to know what is it that made him the way. And I think you're the same way too. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I look around and I see a lot of younger musicians. I guess they need, because of the YouTube generation, they are kind of cooped up in their home. And I went through it. I mean, I was stuck in my room for hours and hours on end. It was great. It was, the woodshedding years. But then I kind of came out and I noticed that there were actual people out there playing, and I learned so much more from that.
Yeah.
It was actually, it was awesome. I loved it. I did it like every weekend. I would go out to the local bar and I would play, and it was like, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this for the rest of my life. It was so cool. It was so cool to see so many other musicians doing the exact same thing as me. It was so mind blowing. It was awesome.
Yeah. There's nothing more. Playing music with other people and hanging out with other musicians is ritualistic. It really is. Like it's good to be around like-minded people. I mean, that's where I think this sort of YouTube generation has to work on is get out of your bedroom, go to jams, start a band. Even if you never plan to be in a band, be in one anyways. Make it part of your learning experience, like, because you don't know whether you'll like it or not. And just like I mean, I love being in bands. It's my favorite thing, but hence why I suffer through being in bands as well. But I stumbled across it because in my generation there was no YouTube. Nobody had phones, and we had BMX bikes and guitars, and we hung out at the 7-Eleven a lot, and we hung out in each other's basements, and we were looking for things to do. And one of them was, hey, like, for example, my first band was my buddy. His dad was a professional drummer. So, and he had amps set up and everything. I'm like 12 or whatever. I'm going in there, just starting to learn how to play, and I knew a few chords. And we're like, hey, can we set up on your dad's gear? And he asked his dad, yeah, sure. Like, I stumbled across it. I stumbled into it. Yeah. I didn't like, oh my God, I want to play in a band when I was 7. I just I knew I wanted to play guitar, and I just loved it. I loved the experience. So I recommend if you're serious about being a guitar player, I mean, excuse me, if you're serious about being a guitar player, you have to at least be in a band. It's part of the whole, learning how to do it. Make that part of your journey. And you may, I know lots of guys who hate it. They're like, I hate being in a band. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to sit in vans for long. Like, but at least try it, because it will improve your playing, and being around musicians and talking to great musicians like we're doing. I mean, I'm just loving this experience of, I can't wait till, all these guests that are coming up. So this is exciting. So anyways, thank you for listening. And, make sure, Braden, how do they get a hold of us? You've been handling that more than I have, since you're the internet guy.
Well, I mean, you can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, all the podcast streaming platforms,
and our websites too. What's your website? You got a brand new website. What is it?
BradenWilliams.ca.
Yeah, and meandmusic.com. That's there's a silent H in there. MEEHAN music.com. And of course, come back and listen to the Psychology of Lickage.
Hi, this is Sean Meehan.
This is Braden Williams,
and you're listening to
The Psychology
of Lickage.